Finally, the last two people walked through the door. One was tall, blonde, and sported considerably more hair than he'd had during his first meeting with Isaac. Professor Bailey had eventually given in and used his biomancy to restore his full head of hair. The other was a Korean man of average height who looked like he could have bench-pressed Carr's pre-system, with slightly glowing ice-blue eyes, carefully taking in every facet of his surroundings. Seon Yoo-jin, the man in charge of the organization that ran South Korea's dungeons, was not someone who often left the capital of Seoul, much less traveled to another country entirely for a meeting in a bar. But Isaac had earned enough credibility with him that his request for a meeting had been accepted as a matter of course. Isaac introduced Yoo-jin to everyone, then added his own set of privacy skills to the ones already in place. Either would have likely sufficed on its own, but combined they probably surpassed even the protection of the Oval Office. He stood up and walked to the edge of the booth, reached out with his hand, and held it out over the table palm down. Beneath it, a lesser illusion wavered into existence. It had taken him hours of practice to get to the point where he could keep these images in place without requiring his constant attention. He was showing them the last few things he'd seen in the other timeline. Images of pain and bloodshed. The endless armies of demons and demonic beasts filling the plains at the foot of the final fortress of humanity, an immense castle built in an oddly modern style. The sheer destruction Mark and Cade had wrought on that horde, a single punch leveling a square kilometer, lightning bolts hammering out of the clear sky, and annihilating foes by the thousands. The gigantic demon lord that had been the last monster of this world to die. The magic slideshow had taken maybe 5 seconds, but everyone was already looking at him with countless unspoken questions on their lips, save Bailey. Isaac decided to explain before anyone interrupted for clarification, dropped every single information defense, and spoke. There are a million ways I came up with to say this, but none seemed sufficient, so I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm from another timeline, and the images I just showed you tell the story of how humanity as a whole died. Isaac paused to allow for a reaction, but everyone just waited patiently for him to continue. Well, except Bailey, who was making a get-on-with-it motion. 11 years from now, in 2034, monsters who killed their summoners and got loose spawned so many more of their kind that the planet itself was overrun. Normal monsters of all tiers, but also field, Tier 10 raid bosses, and even a couple of world bosses. I'd be dead too, but there was a final emergency provision included in the system that allowed the last human to return through time if a few conditions were met, which I did. One moment I was standing on a battlefield. The next I was back in my bed on the day the system initialized. And ever since then, I've been working to try to prevent that future from coming around.